Count off.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we pulse up sorrow with the gold. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. While we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices be silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. There's a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a pale, drooping maiden who toils her life away with a worn heart whose better days are o'er. Though her voice would be merry, 'tis sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
Morning, everybody. It's nice to see a few
Good to
folks
see you.
here on a holiday weekend.
Happy 4th of July holiday weekend.
Which I understand is your birthday.
That's where we need a joke.
Little Crosby, Stills, Nash.
One, two, three, four.
You who were on road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. And you of tender years can't know the fears that your elders grew by. To teach your children what you believe. They see the dream before they can die. And teach your parents well, their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. I am Alexa Adamo Valverde, a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and call your attention to the special note on the back of the order of service. Welcome guests and newcomers. For those attending online, links to the order of service and today's hymns were provided in this morning's email. A few things to keep in mind. Our minister is Reverend Tom Belote, and we are honored today to have guest preacher Reverend Holly Lux-Sullivan. Reverend Holly is a full-time hospice chaplain working with the nonprofit AuthoriCare Collective in Alamance County. She is an experienced grief counselor and is in the final months of training to be a spiritual director with the Hayden Institute. As a reminder, we are masking inside on Sunday mornings and in the outdoor children's spaces as a way of striving to be an inclusive community. While there have been recent changes in masking policies locally, we will continue with our masking policies until further notice from church staff. After the service, we invite you to gather in the courtyard and in our other gathering area. The courtyard is just outside the main entrance. It is a mask optional space and will have a cart with coffee and tea available. The other gathering area is behind the Jones building and includes the porch, grassy area, and the children's playground. And masking is mandatory in this and all other indoor and outdoor spaces. To build community and connection, Rachel Rose and the Welcoming Committee invite you to gather in the courtyard at 11:30 for an in-person Sunday social, and/or join us online for an online small group social at 12 noon. You will find the Zoom link for the online social in this morning's email. Please turn off or silence any cell phones during our service to maintain a worshipful experience. And now, please rise in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn in the gray hymnal number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
One, two, three. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Today's call to worship is adapted from words by Elizabeth Mount and seem relevant to the theme of our service today. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another. Generation to generation, we awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine. A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without air. And we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together. The words for our chalice lighting were written by Cindy Feskin. You will find the words in your order of service. Please join me in reading them. We are all capable in different ways, with various strengths and talents. We are all holy, part of the universe, and the interdependent web. We light this chalice, cherishing our differences and holding each other in sacredness. Each week, we hold a time in our worship service for the sharing of significant joys and sorrows. If you have a personal joy or sorrow you would like to share, you are invited to come forward, place a stone in the water, speak your name into the microphone, and briefly share your joy or sorrow. And I'll begin by sharing a stone of sorrow that on July 6th is 3 years without my mom.
I'm Carolyn Holt, and this was one of the most wonderful weekends in my life. My granddaughter, Alexis, married her partner, Megan, and we celebrated the wedding on Friday and yesterday. The two families from different parts of our country came together and shared and began to know each other as folks who would support this wonderful couple. So thank you.
Good morning. I am Elspeth van Tongeren. I have a brother who lives in Paris, France. He is 96 years old. And he had a daughter who lived in the Netherlands. She died four days ago from some kind of lung disease, not COVID. I knew her fairly well and loved her dearly, and it leaves a gap in an already very small family.
Good morning, Dorothy Hammett, Brad Kasiba. Our neighborhood lost a spark. Two of our neighbors died unexpectedly the last 3 days. One of them was a woman I walked with 5 days a week, spent several hours with every day, and she was just such a delight. She loved the wolf pack, gardening, her children, her grandson, and we will miss her. Her name was Lois Anub, involved in the Historical Society for anybody who does that. The other woman was the neighborhood pet sitter, and she was so dear to so many people because she, took care of their pets when they weren't in town. So Janet Shea passed away 2 days later, and it's just hard.
Well, we have two big joys. On the 17th, our 9th grandchild was born. Sorry, I didn't know that was there, but safe and sound. And her name is Parker Ann, and the Ann is a tribute to me, which is my middle name. It's our son Ben and his wife Sarah out in Oakland, California, and we had the privilege of being there for 2 weeks, a few days before, to get in the swing of things with little 2-year-old Riley, and it was exhausting, but it was really a privilege. And our other joy, sorry guys,
is that our middle son, Christopher, and his wife Allison, who are over here, he'll wave,
and the 3 boys.
have moved into Chapel Hill last week, and their sons Elliot, Davis, and Brett are probably ensconced in RE right now, and Christopher and Elliot are already in the musical.
With us, yeah.
That will be fun.
The last stone is for all the joys and sorrows this morning that were unspoken, but that live in our hearts and are no less real.
Our lives are so rich and our hearts are full. with joy, with sorrow, with hope, with despair. So I invite you to take a breath. I know it can feel hard in our masks to breathe as much as we want. But take a breath. Know that that breath, that peace is always there. And let us share a moment of silence. Spirit of life, we give thanks for this community. We give thanks for dear loved ones as they have left this earth. We give thanks for dear loved ones just arriving on this earth and everything in between. Amen and blessed be.
Please rise in body or spirit for our meditation hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
We're going to try this one as a round to be ambitious this 4th of July weekend. We're going to do it as a 3-part round with this third of the congregation singing the first round, this middle doing the second, and the third. So the first side follow Scott, the middle follow Jane, and I'll bring up the rear here on this side.
So we're doing it twice?
We will do the whole song once in unison, and then we'll do two versions of the round.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Very nice.
Today's reading is titled Our Great Calling by the Reverend Nathan Ryan. I still feel stifled trying to talk about my children. Everything I can think to say about them is how great, amazing, and wonderful they are. But then I stop myself, because I know that literally every person ever born was born that perfect and amazing. Also, I'm still not fully reconciled, nor do I think I will ever be, on the decision to have them. We made a decision to create these two people knowing that living is painful. If everything goes the way we want it to, they will love us, and then they will bury us. That's the best case scenario. Sadly, we know that many parents weren't given that option. What does it mean that, while weighing this, we still decided to bring them into a world that is violent, xenophobic, racist, hateful, polluted, dangerous, and imperfect? I think we have a holy obligation to bring about paradise on this earth, and each generation helps us do that. I've enlisted them without their consent in this work, just as every one of us was enlisted in this work without our consent. I wanted to give them the gift of being alive. I wanted another person to experience the sheer joy, complications, and beauty of this wonderful, imperfect earth and all of its people. So now, the challenge. Can you make the world that should have been when my children were born? For some reason, that's an easier challenge to articulate than the real one. Make the world that you and I should have had before we were born. You were born of the most divine particles. Make the world better because you exist. Go find the person you disagree with the most, or who bothers you the most, and go love the hell out of them. Go have a conversation, bake a loaf of bread, love them as you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, well, love yourself. If these past few years haven't shown us this is our great calling, I can't imagine what would. And now we take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. Your gifts will be most gratefully received. Baskets will be sent through the congregation row by row. And please know there is also a new QR code on the back of the order of service for electronic gifts. Just use your camera, and the QR code will take you to our online offertory page.
They say everything can be replaced. They say every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, oh, any day now, I shall be released. They say every man needs protection. They say that every man must fall. Yet I swear I see my reflection somewhere so high above this wall. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, oh, any day now, I shall be released. yonder stands the man in this lonely crowd. A man who swears he's not to blame. All day long I hear him shouting so loud, just crying out that he was afraid. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, oh, any day now, I shall be released. Any day now, oh, any day now, I shall be released.
Earrings and masks aren't always friends. Like many of you friends, I'm tired. I'm so tired of people getting shot to death because, as Taraji P. Henson said a few days ago on the BET Awards, in this country, guns have more rights than a woman. I am tired of children getting shot to death and the response being suggestions to arm teachers. My mother was a teacher. I don't want her to have to carry a gun into her classroom. I am tired of police killing people they are supposed to be protecting and serving. I'm tired of cisgender, straight white men telling members of oppressed communities that they are not as worthy of respect as those cisgender, straight white men. I'm tired of money giving people the power to make decisions for people with less money and power. I am tired of white supremacy, misogyny, ableism, heterosexism, and fat phobia. This little list, as you know, is nowhere near exhaustive. There are a dozen more things I'm tired of, and I imagine the same is true for many of you. Tell me, what are you tired of? War. Say that again louder. People using plastic bags. Thank you. Trump. People flying. Human trafficking. Uncertainty. Ignorance. Corruption. Is that what I heard? What was that last one? Climate denial. Thank you. Voter suppression. Sexual harassment. I heard something. Greed. Thank you. Lies. One more time. We have a lot that we are tired of. But did you feel what just happened, friends? And I'm sorry I didn't catch that last one. Polarization. Thank you. Beautiful. What just happened is energy, right? Feeding off of each other, sharing our sorrow and our rage. Rage, which is enlivening, and sorrow, which is exhausting. Anyone who has experienced energy healing knows that we are so intertwined. My energy affects yours, whether I'm standing here many feet away or right beside you in the pew. That's true whether my energy is lively and upbeat or withdrawn and quiet. And of course, we don't have to have done energy work to understand this, to understand how connected we are. We feel that connecting energy, those tendrils of the web connecting us. Because even when I had to ask someone to repeat something, the people immediately around you were nodding. We are connected in every possible way. My vibrations reverberate off of you as your vibrations reverberate off of me and every single one of us in this room. We know this because during lockdown, we missed feeling each other's energy, right? We know by looking at a loved one before they say a word that they're in a bad mood, not because of the look on their face or the set of their shoulders, but because of how the room feels when they walk in, right? There's a shift. And because we love them, we go to them and say, "Hey, babe, how are you?" Or on the other hand, we're in a situation where the person is someone we think of as on the other side, as the opponent, perhaps. We brace ourselves for attack, or we leave the room. Our fight or flight kicks in. Either way, we affect each other. The most beautiful part of this is that we get to decide how we move through the world, who we are in the world. We get to decide if the energy we put off is welcoming or threatening. Each of us decides how to respond when we inevitably run up against someone we disagree with on fundamental values, whether that person is a family member or a stranger. We know this because just because we're all in a UU service doesn't mean we agree on everything. Anyone ever sat through a committee meeting where agreement wasn't the case? Thought so. In my experience, UU congregations are often not places for shouting and lamenting, right? It took y'all a second or two to realize, like, oh no, she really wants us to respond in some way. I get it. I have been in those pews too, many, many times. We are not used to being invited to share. That's okay. But too often, our congregations and our communities aren't places for recognizing and working through difference. They should be. They should have been for a long time now. For decades, the people of color among us have felt they were shouting into the wind, unheard by their white supposed allies. It seems it's only in the last few years that most of us white folks have woken up to what our sisters and brothers of color have been saying for a very long time. So even if many of us are arriving late to the party, we have to allow space for our rage and our sorrow. First, because there are too many things that we have to feel rage and sorrow about. It's too much. More importantly, because sharing our feelings, sharing our sorrow assures us that we are not alone in it. And our shared rage sparks the fire we need to continue to fight for justice. My friend and fellow UU, singer-songwriter Melissa Monforti, speaks beautifully of how to approach that fight. She says that though resist has become a popular battle cry, resistance isn't joyful or creative. Resistance is reactionary and allows someone else to drive our actions. She writes on her blog, "To resist, you are reacting. You had no agenda in mind per se. Someone did something, you got mad, and now you're fighting back. To persist, you have a plan. You are going somewhere, a place you want to go. It was your idea and you brought some friends along." The sorrow and rage our sharing brings up can inspire us to resist. And in my mind, that resistance has a place. But it must only be a starting place. Because as Melissa points out, under our rage and our sorrow, our compassion, and our own pain at seeing what others are going through, fear for what's coming next, compassion for what people are suffering. Awareness of those things is critical to sustain our work for justice. It is our compassion that will keep us from turning anger at policies into rage toward particular people. It's too easy to blame them, whoever they are, for decisions they make that strip people not only of rights, but of the acknowledgement of their fundamental humanity. Those last two words, fundamental humanity, are crucial to refusing to surrender to rage that masks fear. If I argue, for instance, that the Supreme Court is stripping women of our personhood, I cannot do so by denying that the members of that court are fallible people, just as I am, right? The other day I saw a photo of the Supreme Court where someone had taken a marker and, circled each little head and labeled them one way or another. The 5 who voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. The insults they were labeled with are not words I will speak from a pulpit, but it's telling that the insult chosen for Amy Coney Barrett, the woman of the 5 who voted to overturn Roe, the insult for her was the most basic pedestrian insult you can think of for a woman. And I point this out because even the progressive person who did this little bit of artistry, angry at the overturning of an almost 50-year-old precedent, even that progressive person could only come up with a sexist term for that justice. The creator of the meme probably felt they were expressing their rage, which they certainly were. And I mean, did I giggle? Yes, I giggled. But in expressing their rage, they weren't doing so creatively. Denigrating the justice's humanity did nothing but reveal the creator's own unexamined sexism. But when we get creative, we generate ideas for how to get services and support to people, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever they need. When we get creative, we begin to heal our own pain rather than creating pain for others. Creativity allows us to find the people who are already doing the work and get humble enough to ask them to teach us or to allow us to learn from them. Getting creative allows us to believe that someone I disagree with, however misguided I may think their actions are, that person I want to believe is working from a place of good faith. It is easy for me to believe they're not, right? It takes a lot more imagination and work on my part to believe they're acting in ways they truly believe are right morally, spiritually, ethically. By acknowledging the humanity in someone whose actions I hate, I refuse to give up my own. Not only am I affirming their inherent worth and dignity, I am enriched by using my imagination to look for humanity in those whose actions harm people, in my estimation. When I do that, I stand firmer in my belief that all are worthy because I'm affirming they are too. We also have to remember that we often define humanity in terms of compassion and mercy, the better angels of our nature, right? I actually looked it up, and depending on which dictionary you look in, compassion and mercy, kindness is either the first definition of humanity or the second, right? It's about whether we're talking about the body of people that is humanity or the idea of humanity. But we would do better to remember that Humanity is and always has been flawed. Utopian visions aside, I dare say we always will be. And that doesn't mean we stop working to bring those utopian ideals into existence. In the 20th century, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was asked, how long will it take to see social justice? Dr. King responded, how long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. How long? Not long. At this moment in our country's history, we would do well to remember the origin of the words King made famous. You may know that King was paraphrasing and making more concise part of a sermon by Unitarian minister and abolitionist Reverend Theodore Parker. In the 19th century, Parker preached these words: I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice. As beautifully as Dr. King paraphrased Parker, in this, the second decade of the 21st century, Parker's original quote offers more assurance, for me at least, than King's shorter version. Because Parker emphasizes that our own experiences are not enough to see the end of the curve toward justice. Just a few years ago, many of us thought we could see, if not the end of the arc, at least the beginning of the end, because of the progress we've seen in our lifetimes for women, people with physical disabilities, people of color, and the queer community. Too many of us naively believed we had turned a corner and ahead lay only blue skies and greater respect for all people's common humanity. In more recent years, we see all too clearly how far we still must go. Parker's fuller explanation of the arc of the moral universe points out that he can divine the curve of the arc by his conscience. That is what we must cling to. Our consciences know that all people are equal and deserving of equal rights. That includes those whose actions and beliefs we find reprehensible. I encourage us too to remember that an arc is made up of countless points. And if there are any engineers, science, math type people out there, please don't hold me to what I'm about to say. There is no mathematical logic to it, I don't think. But close your eyes for a moment and draw an arc in your mind. Now zoom way, way in on that arc. The points that make up the arc don't create a straight line at a 45-degree angle. Rather, they jump all over, up and down, with the whims of people's hearts and minds. It's only in pulling way back out that we can see the smattering of points forming an arc. Parker preached the sermon these words are from in 1852. King paraphrased him in 1965. In 2022, these words remind us that our consciences will continue to be our guide, and yes, the arc is far longer than we want it to be, but it continues to bend toward justice. It does so because just as some people have always wanted to rule others, people have also always fought back for themselves, but also for each other. From time immemorial, people have strived to conquer each other, and people have strived to assert their own humanity. There are countless instances across the centuries of people pushing back on those who would harm them. We are on our way. We will always be on our way. We have much work to do, but we are not alone. In more than 9 years as a hospice chaplain, I've served hundreds of people in the final months of their lives. What I find is that at the end of our lives, the only thing that matters are the people around us and the love we share with them. If we're big cat or dog people, people includes them too. For the most part, the patients and families I serve are not caught up in policing other people's lives. Instead, they are concerned almost exclusively with the people they love. When our mortality is undeniably up close and personal, that's all that matters. People facing death tell me about favorite elementary school teachers and the first love they've never told their families about. They confess how they've wronged others, and often they work through long ago traumas and find ways to forgive those who have wronged them. When we look back on our lives, when we are lucky enough to look back on our lives, our sight becomes laser focused. We don't think about the state of immigration or policing, even when those things were incredibly important to us in younger years. We think about the people who are significant to us. Too often it takes a life-ending illness for us to discover that we are bound to everyone and everything else in the interdependent web. I am connected forever to those I have hurt purposely or unintentionally. That web connects the perpetrator of sexual assault to the survivor. It connects a murderer to the family of the murder victim. Like tossing a stone into a pond and watching the ripples, when an event plucks one strand of the web, every connected strand is likewise affected. On September 11th, 2001, Frank Roque, a white man who lived in Mesa, Arizona and worked as a machinist, heard about the terrorist attacks, and later that day told a restaurant server, and forgive me, I'm going to use an offensive term, he told a server that he was going to, quote, go out and shoot some towel heads, unquote. Balbir Singh Sodhi was a Sikh man from India who had immigrated to the US and settled in Mesa, where he ran a gas station and convenience store. Balbir was planting flowers, working with some landscapers outside of his store, when Frank Roque drove past and shot Balbir to death on September 15th, just 4 days after the terrorist attacks. After killing Balbir, Roque drove to 2 more places, shooting at a Lebanese American clerk at a gas station and an Afghan man in his home. Mercifully, those shots missed. When Roque was arrested for killing Balbir and attempting to kill the other men, he said he was a patriot. Balbir was the first man to die in a hate crime after the 9/11 attacks, but he was far from the last. His death and others caused by ignorance and hate helped create a generation of activists like Valerie Carr, a filmmaker and author who became dear friends with Balbir's family and created a documentary about him. The day after the 15th anniversary of Balbir's death, Carr and Balbir's brother called Roque, the murderer, in prison to speak with him for the first time. Roque apologized, saying that he'd had a mental breakdown, but was sorry for killing Balbir. Balbir's brother, a wonderful Sikh man whose faith insisted that he forgive the killer, did in fact offer the killer forgiveness. While Kaur, on her blog, acknowledged feeling unsatisfied with the conversation, she wrote, "True reconciliation requires accountability, and Roque insisted that he did not kill intentionally. He could not talk about the murder without also talking about the damage it caused him and his family. There are many questions left, Why did Roque choose Balbir Sodi? Does he grasp the full extent of the pain and grief he caused the Sodi family and the Sikh community? Will forgiveness lead us toward justice? While I heard both sides reaching for reconciliation, she says, the moment itself eluded us. Kaur's work and that of Balbir's family continues. They are bound together, as countless others are, connected to Balbir's death and the other attempted shootings. Roque died in prison recently, having lived 20 years longer than the man he murdered. But his death doesn't end the relationships he had with others, both those he loved and those he hurt. They carry on. We can insult or even physically harm those with whom we disagree on important matters. But if we do, we only diminish ourselves. It is when we look past the bitterness and ugliness that we see the pain and fear behind the hate, in them and in ourselves. It is then that we find compassion edging its way out from behind our heart's cold walls and into the sunlight. We share this amazing earth with people who disagree with us in profound ways, people whose beliefs we will never change, just as they will not change ours. Only when we recognize and acknowledge the ways in which we are connected to them will we be able to joyfully coexist. Let us know that acting with compassion is best for us and might, just might, make a little bit of a difference in that opponent's life too. Let us remember that the person spitting hate also hurts and hopes as we do. May we try to put out more loving energy than anything else. May we see in others the best they have to offer, which is always more than the worst they've said or done. May we seek communion in our tangled, interdependent web. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Please stand in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, number 123 in your gray hymnal, Spirit of Life.
And we're going to sing it twice. Hang on.
Please remain standing in body or spirit. You will find the words for extinguishing the chalice in your order of service. Please join me if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We would also like to take a moment to acknowledge Paul Eskildson, Jane Provan, and Scott Provan for leading the hymns and providing all the wonderful music for today's service. And now it is time to sing Shalom. If you would like to hold hands with those around you, please indicate so by putting your hands out to either side. If not, please cross your hands over your chest. Shalom, my friends, shalom, my friends, shalom, shalom. We'll meet again, shalom, shalom.